Ja, willkommen. Welcome, Robert Kennedy Jr. Welcome, Santa Dupree. Welcome, Mary Holland. Welcome, Tina Choi. And Marcus Heinz, you know all. First of all, I would like to say thank you that you found the time during this weekend. You have been invited by the European chapter of Children's Health Defense. It was the inaugural meeting for you, and we are very pleased and grateful that you found the time for this press conference with us. Sandra, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, it is a big honor and opportunity to meet with our friends from Germany. We've been working on some time now to try to open up a European chapter of Children's Health Defense. And because we feel that what is happening now is really becoming an international agenda that needs to have an international response, and so wanted to really to unite initiatives in Europe. And so we just signed the statutes and of our European organization this week, basically. It's just been, and we absolutely need, of course, to have our inaugural meeting and meet with colleagues from all over Europe. And so this is why we thought Berlin was the right place to do it. And there, it's all kind of, came into place that the people from Querdenken and the protest and we're also, of course, very eager to have some words from our chairman, Bobby Kennedy. So, please.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm very, very impressed with the number of cameras in this room. I think this is more cameras and reporters than I've seen in 15 years of doing this work. And one of the most, I think, alarming features of this rise of medical totalitarianism, of digital totalitarianism, has been the capacity of the pharmaceutical cartels and for the big digital companies to control the flow of information. And that's something that I think grassroots groups that challenge official orthodoxies are running across this information age tyranny everywhere that we go. My father and my uncle strongly believed that democracy can only survive if we have the free flow of information. And at that time, we had more limited international and national vehicles. We had 3 television networks in the United States and 1 public information network, and we had many, many radio shows. But the battle, my uncles recognized Radio Free Europe and the USIA, the United States Information Agency. They funded and created that because they knew that the only way to challenge totalitarianism behind the Iron Curtain was by getting accurate information to the people of those nations. And today, the public square information is controlled by a few large companies that are headquartered in Silicon Valley in the United States. Those companies have very, very strong alliances with the pharmaceutical companies. Google, which actively censors information of the kind that we're trying to get out, is a vaccine company. Google makes vaccines. Its subsidiaries and its sister corporations that are part of Verily and Alphabet are making flu vaccines, are making COVID vaccines, and they are actively, Google and Facebook and the others are actively censoring information, not only critical information of the vaccine industry, information about corruption among health regulatory officials, and information about other alternatives that compete with the pharmaceutical paradigm. Google actively censors information about chiropractors, about holistic health, about functional medicine, about integrative medicine, about drugs like hydroxychloroquine, which are for which the patents have expired. And I'm not here to say that hydroxychloroquine works or it doesn't work. You know, we need to look at science for that. What we do know is that the science is being suppressed and the science is being fixed. And that should offend every American, every European, everybody in the world who cares about democracy, about human health, about freedom and independence. There was a big battle at the beginning of American history between some of our greatest leaders, Madison and Adams on the one side and Jefferson on the other. And Madison and Adams believed that only people who owned land should be able to vote, property owners. And Jefferson said, no, everybody should get the vote. By everybody, he meant all white men, but everybody. And Madison and Adams were not anti-democratic and they were not snobs. They understood that only people who owned property were educated. And they believed that if democracy were handed over, that the vote, the franchise was given to people who did not have education, that they would easily be seduced by demagogues, that they would be bribed and blackmailed by corporations, and that they would be talked into ruling, and they would be frightened by unscrupulous politicians and authoritarian elements, and that fear would cause them to voluntarily relinquish the Bill of Rights that the American revolutionists had shed their blood to make into a constitution. And Jefferson agreed with them. And he said, you're right, an uneducated public will quickly give away democracy. He said the remedy for that is not to deprive the public of its right to vote, but rather to forcibly educate them. And so the United States, the first 13 colonies, were the first nations in the world to have mandatory public education. And on Jefferson's gravestone, it does not say author of the Declaration of Independence. It says founder of the University of Virginia, because he understood that an educated, informed public was the only thing that holds democracy together. And today, the public square, the area that we all get our education from, is controlled by a few billionaires from Silicon Valley. And you know, people say, well, who's behind? I don't know whether the pandemic was planned. I don't have the information. Whether it was deliberate or whether it was an accident, or whether it was just a wild virus that escaped. What I do know, and what should be obvious to every single person, is that it has become an instrument of convenience for authoritarian elements who are using it to generate fear and clamp down to justify the clamping down of authoritarian controls all over our society. And the question is, who's behind it? And the answer to that question is always the same. Quo bono? Who's benefiting? Who is benefiting? Who is getting richer while the middle class in our nations is being obliterated? It's Bill Gates, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it is the people who own Google, and all of these companies are part of not only propagating and promoting and the quarantine, the lockdown that is making them rich, they're also censoring criticism of those policies actively and censoring questions that legitimate questions, rational calm, legitimate questions that the public wants to ask about the relationships between the regulatory agencies and the pharmaceutical companies, and about the policies, the wearing of masks, of which there's a legitimate question. We don't take a position on the wearing of masks, but we do publish the science. And I can tell you that the science is not unambiguous. We've looked at hundreds of studies, including 3 large meta-reviews, and they all indicate that masks don't work. There are studies that say they may work, and we don't take a position on it. But people ought to be able to talk about those things. People ought to be able to question them. People ought to be able to write about the contrary science. We ought to be able to debate about hydrochloroquine. We ought to have these debates about the lockdown, the quarantine. Nobody's asking critical questions. Is the quarantine going to kill more people than the COVID?
Yes.
Why has that question never been asked? We have very good studies from the 1980s in the United States that show that unemployment kills people. Every 1 point in unemployment, in 1982, there's a very, very solid study that has been cited hundreds of times in the literature, peer-reviewed study, that shows that every 1 point of unemployment kills 37,000 people. And this was in 82, when our population was 43% less. So you need to almost double that. So every point in unemployment kills 60,000 people. And it went through, how did they die? Well, at that time, 9,000 of them were dying from heart attacks. 900 were dying from suicide. You can read the study, which is posted on my website, and it tells how all those people are dying. But in addition to that, there's 4,000 extra imprisonments, 3,300 extra admissions to mental institutions. And we're seeing today that we could be driving unemployment rates up to 20 or 30%, 20 extra points, 30 extra points. You're talking about millions of people dead from those causes. In addition to that, we have something they didn't have in the 1980s, which are these profound and deliberate injuries to the supply chains for foods and medicines. Those are going to kill people. Isolation kills people. In England, in 5 weeks in April and May, there were 30,000 extra deaths in senior centers, in nursing homes. But only 10,000 of those were from COVID. 20,000 were from isolation. Elderly people who didn't see their doctor for hypertension, for kidney dialysis, or aches and pains that turned into something lethal for them. People who, senior citizens, whose families couldn't visit them, and so they were being abused by healthcare workers. They weren't getting the kind of care that they needed. According to the World Health Organization, 2 months of quarantine will add 6.3 million cases of tuberculosis and 1.5 million people dead from tuberculosis. That's more people than will die from COVID. These are questions that need to be asked. They need to be debated. And I'm so happy that Children's Health Defense is now coming to Europe. We have a global opponent. These companies, Glaxo, Merck, Sanofi, and Pfizer, are global companies. They have made a concerted effort to subvert democracy in every nation of Europe and every nation around the world, and they own our political leaders. And we need a global institution that can challenge them. And for that reason, we are now spreading the influence and the networking from Children's Health Defense to Europe as well. And we're very proud of all of our new members in Europe, and we're very proud to launch this new organization, Children's Health Defense Europe, today. Thank you.
We congratulate you to the foundation of Children's Health Defense Europe, and we are here with doctors and lawyers who have been actively fighting for more information, free information. And I would like to suggest that they come to the front now, because we will be working together very closely with Children's Health Defense Europe, our doctors, our Ärzte für Aufklärung, the lawyers of Klagepaten und Anwälte für Aufklärung will be network partners for Children's Health Defense Europe.
Maybe
Yes.
Mary, if you want to say something.
Just very briefly, that I work in the United States with Children's
This is
Health
Mary
Defense.
Holland, who's one of our attorneys in the United States,
you.
and I'm a professor, a former professor for many years, many decades at NYU Law School.
May I interrupt? Könnt ihr Englisch alle verstehen? Wir haben auch eine Übersetzerin im Raum.
I think that Senta and Robert have said the most important things, but just let me add my sense that we are up against global forces. That's obvious, right? We have shutdowns around the world, and people are suffering around the world. And so we have to have a coordinated response. It's not optional, it's necessary. And so we are so grateful to be here in Germany, because you do understand this. Having lived through totalitarianism, having had a divided country, there are few countries in the world who are better able to understand what we are truly up against. And so we are so grateful to be here with you and to look forward to collaboration in the time ahead of us, so that we can really restore our democracy and our freedom and our free expression and our respect for all people. So I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Ich heiße Tina Choi, ich bin das deutsche Gründungsmitglied für Children's Health Defense Europe und ich bin sehr, sehr stolz und sehr, sehr froh, dabei sein zu dürfen. Und wie ich gestern schon gesagt habe, unsere Kinder sind das Allergrößte und das Allerwichtigste, was wir haben auf der Welt. Unsere Hoffnung, unsere Zukunft, alles. Und um diese gesund und glücklich aufwachsen zu sehen, in Frieden und in Freiheit, dafür steht Children's Health Defense. Und dafür werden wir alles tun, was in unserer Macht steht. Und wir haben die Unterstützung von Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Man findet uns jetzt auch schon auf childrenshealthdefense.eu, ist unsere Webseite. Dort kann man sich auch als ein Mitglied anmelden, das heißt ein lebenslanges Mitglied. Und dann können wir zum Beispiel Mitglieder sammeln und dann in bestimmten Ländern in Europa dann auch Aktionen starten. Und das ist uns sehr wichtig, dass ihr uns alle unterstützt, damit wir möglichst schnell mit der Arbeit hier fortfahren können, die Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in Amerika macht. Vielen Dank.
Ja, ich würde sagen, dann sage ich noch ein paar Worte in Deutsch, nachdem unser Publikum jetzt auch dann gefragt hat. Und ja, ich möchte mich auch ganz, ganz herzlich bei euch bedanken, dass ihr dieses Wochenende bei uns seid. Es ist ein sehr, sehr starkes Signal, dass wir jetzt Children's Health Defense auch in Europa haben. Es war für unsere Demonstration gestern ein unglaublicher Push, dass wir Robert auf der Bühne hatten. Ich habe es zwar selber nicht mitbekommen, ich habe es nur gehört, weil ich andersweitig unterwegs war. Aber wir haben jetzt sehr viele positive Rückmeldungen gehabt und es war wirklich richtig, richtig wichtig. Und Michael Ballweg, für den ich jetzt hier stellvertretend auch spreche, der ist momentan in seinem Protestcamp, weil er jetzt hier schauen muss, dass wir weitermachen dürfen. Wir haben vorher kurz Fotos gemacht und wir werden vielleicht auch nachher noch ein kleines Interview machen. Aber es ist natürlich auch wichtig, dass dieses Protestcamp weitergeht. Deswegen hat dann der Michael gebeten, auch für ihn nochmal zu sprechen und sich ganz herzlich bei Robert zu bedanken und bei Mary auch, dass wir das so schnell hingekriegt haben. Das war ein unglaublicher Spirit. Wir haben am Anfang, glaube ich, alle nicht gedacht, wir kriegen das hin. Und wir hatten ein so großes Team an Leuten im Hintergrund, Ärzte, Anwälte, Personenschutz, Netzwerker. Und es hat wie ein Uhrwerk funktioniert. Ja, es lief absolut perfekt. Ich hätte nie geglaubt, dass wir das so reibungslos hinbekommen. Und das ist unglaublich, weil man einfach sieht, wenn man das Richtige tut, dann funktionieren die Dinge. Dann findet man Helfer und dass das in dieser Weise geklappt hat. Das war gestern ein Signal in die ganze Welt, was unsere Friedensbewegung angeht und natürlich auch, was die Projekte von Children's Health Defense angeht. Weil Kinderrechte auf der ganzen Welt sind momentan dramatisch eingeschränkt. Die Menschenrechte sind dramatisch eingeschränkt und ich sehe das genauso. Wir brauchen hier eine globale Antwort auf eine globale Krise und deswegen sind wir alle hier. Und ich bin unheimlich froh, dass wir so viele tolle Menschen haben, die uns hier helfen. Und ich denke mal, als nächstes würden wir jetzt übergehen zu den Ärzten dann.
I just wanted to say it was, as you say, something, it was a huge challenge in a very, very, very short time. And everything has fallen into place. Ein Uhrwerk.
Yeah.
So it was like a little bit of a miracle, and it was just a fantastic spirit, and we're immensely grateful and thrilled, and by everything that's happening here, and really feels good. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Junior, with my colleague, he's also a lawyer, and he is the chairman of Children's Health Defense United States. I'm here with Heiko Schöning, Doctors of Enlightenment, and Dr. Bodo Schiffmann. And I think you can speak some medical things, and I pass the word to you.
Yeah.
First.
Thank you very much. My name is Heiko Schöning. I'm a medical doctor from Hamburg, Germany, and I'm one of the co-founders of Doctors of Enlightenment, in German Ärzte für Aufklärung, in Spanish Médicos por la Verdad. This organizations of medical doctors represent more than 1,000 international doctors worldwide. So, and what we say together is that this story with COVID-19 is not on any scientific basis. It's just a lie. Yeah. So we need to say that this is just something to turn around the economy. So in the center is not any health problem. So believe me, the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, here, COVID-19 is not the problem. The real problem is the economy. So this is a good story for all people in the world, for all people who are now forced to wear masks. And as Bobby said this before, so these masks are bad for health. We have scientific studies that show this. We already presented all scientific facts that showed that these masks are not good for the people, they are not protecting from any virus. It's just ridiculous. Well, but what is much more serious, of course, is the abuse of our civil rights. And these civil rights are very important for health as well, because it gives you a better feeling, better for your immune system. And in Melbourne, Australia, we see now, from the beginning of August 2020, a lockdown stage 4. What does this mean? And who implemented this? This lockdown stage 4 in Melbourne, Australia means that the people are not allowed to go onto the street here for more than 1 hour for sports, that they were locked down like in martial law from 8 o'clock in the evening up to the dawn, up to 5 o'clock in the morning. All shops are closed over there, only very few for living. The children, and especially the children, are suffering. The children are not allowed to go to school. We have the same situation here, partly in Germany, and our children are suffering. And this is not based on any scientific facts. I need to emphasize this again. So we need to ask ourselves, cui bono? Who profits out of this? And we see that these are highly criminals, these are oligarchs. Oligarchs are not only in Russia, they are in the United States and in other countries as well. And they have these companies, like you said before, they own Google, Vaccinator as well. And I just want to point the thing on the company Emergent Biosolutions, former name Bioport. We had this story that we have a deadly virus or bacteria. We had this story before. It was the same pattern. And I just would like to remind you just shortly. In 2001, we have this anthrax attack with this anthrax panic. And it's very similar to the corona panic as well. And guess what? The same people behind the same company, Emergent Biosolution now, they made the big money out of this. Yeah? And today in Germany, the Minister of Health bought 300 million doses of vaccines against COVID-19 from the company AstraZeneca. But guess who is producing this? It's an American company, and same again, it's Emergent Biosolutions, yeah? Former name Bioport. So we have a criminal line, and we need to investigate this, and we need to charge these organized crime. It's nothing else. We have no health problem. Yeah, all data show this. We have a problem with organized crime, and in the center is the economy. Thank you very much indeed.
Second, I just received the message that on the Siegessäule there is a lot of violence by the police, so I have to check this. I pass the word to Bodo, and I come back when we fix this.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be on the side of Mr. Kennedy in this fight against the crime of the century. This is the crime of the century. I want to remember you. It's the fourth time they tried this. It was anthrax, it was the bird flu, it was the pig flu, and now it's COVID-19. They tried the same thing, the same phrases, the same thing with the vaccination as the solution for the problems in the world. And the only thing behind it, everyone knows right now, right here on the channels, we have to tell the truth. There is no danger for the people. The thing is, it's like the people believe in this mask because they think they can get back control, and they are frightened to death. And this is the way also Goebbels said, you mentioned it in your speech yesterday, Goebbels said you don't need fascism or socialism. The only thing you need to control the public is fear. But right now we are very, very much people who have recognized that there is a problem. We are censored. I feel by myself, to introduce myself, my name is Bodo Schiffmann, I'm just an ORL doctor, and I make YouTube videos. And I started making YouTube videos and got a lot of information because I had another view on the curves and on the numbers of the deaths and of the ill people, and I said there is no need to worry. The very startling thing on this is that they are not lying. You can read these scripts for this pandemic on the side of the Bundestag. You can read it on the World Health Organization, the scenario 201, and how to treat the COVID-19 disease and something like this. You find a totally script like for a movie. And they are not lying about the numbers. You can get the numbers from the Robert Koch Institute or wherever you like to. The numbers are correct, but the people, they are not listening. The only thing they are listening to is the mainstream media. And the other side, we are the dark side of the mainstream media. We are the alternative facts, as Donald Trump would say. So when you have a look at them, you won't find them. Right now in the press, there is they speak about Yesterday it's about 38,000 or 50,000 people on the street. The only thing mentioned is the problems at the Reichstag, where a few people go to the stairway of the Reichstag. And there is no word about this friendly revolution thing in the streets, and nobody talks about this. We are right now, and it's hard to say this, in a totalism, fascistoid state in Germany. They're controlling the media, they censor our meaning, they're not hearing the opposite side. And I'm very, very... The thing why I do this is because I have two childs. One in the age of 9 years, one is 14. I don't want them to grow up like this, and they are not wearing masks. I am not wearing masks too. And I strongly believe in God and I'm in Christ, and I think it's a chance. It's a chance for all people, for all religions to get together across borders, and also the Muslim people or the Jewish people and everyone. Now we are all in the same boat, and we all have to fight against this, I think, diabolic side of the people Heiko mentioned before and Mr. Kennedy mentioned before. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kennedy, you as an expert, you know about the Georgian guidestones. The Georgian guidestones in Alberton, there is a monument saying we want to have only 500 million people. So do you think that this could be the plan to reduce the population down to 500 million?
I don't know.
But you know this statute?
No. No, but I know that there are many people who believe that there is a population control agenda behind this. I have no idea. I don't know what's happening. I don't have the information to be able to connect those dots.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, I represent a Dutch group of resistance, Virus Waarheid, which is Virus Truth. We're doing lawsuits against the state because the only two things we want is the information behind the measures, which should be kept secret, and we want them to respect the Constitution. It would be very helpful for us if you could be taking a picture with these two guys who are in the front line for support.
Happy to.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We will do that afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Hi, thanks, Charlie. I just have a question from Frank Rusink, he's from the Netherlands as well, and he asked me to ask you, what do you think is the biggest scandal that is not being openly admitted in the vaccine industry, so that people need to know about, but people generally don't know about? What would you say is the biggest misconduct or biggest scandal?
It's hard to choose one. We have Larry from Corbella here, who is part of an Italian group that has actually done chemical analysis of all of the principal vaccines and found them highly contaminated with nanoparticles, but also with a variety of metals. Not just the metal adjuvants that they admit are in the vaccine, but colloidal metal particles, glass particles, amphetamines, all kinds of organic chemicals, and she's found them in every vaccine. And in fact, many of the vaccines completely lacked any antigens. The antigen is the viral particle that gives you immunity. And so in many of the cases where they actually did the chemical analysis, and these are in very, very reputable laboratories at Oxford and Frankfurt and around the world, and multiple samples sent to multiple laboratories that are all certified, qualified labs, all came back with these really horrific results, analysis, that show that many of these vaccines are just pure poison with nothing good in them. And, I think the scandal is that there's been no reaction from government agencies. I mean, even to tell us it's not true. You know, they just refuse. There's just a wall of silence around it, and there's no coverage, of course, in the mainstream media. That's a scandal. I mean, everything about the vaccine program is a scandal. The fact that vaccines are immune from safety testing, and many people don't believe that, but in the United States, you know, we sued HHS, which is the agency in charge of all producing and mandating all vaccines. We said to them, we've been saying none of them are safety tested. Can you show us a safety test for a pre-licensing placebo safety test for any of the 72 vaccines now mandated for our children? And after 2 years of litigation and fighting us and sandbagging and stonewalling, they came back and said, we don't have any. And the reason for that is that CDC is the descendant of the Public Health Service, which is a quasi-military agency. This is why people at CDC wear military uniforms and they have military ranks like Surgeon General. And the vaccine program was initially conceived as a national security defense against biological attacks on our country. So they wanted to make sure that if the Russians attacked us with anthrax or some other biological agent, that they could quickly formulate and deploy a vaccine to 200 million Americans with no regulatory impediments. And they said, if we call it a medicine, we're going to have to safety test it, and that takes 5 years to do a double-blind placebo testing because there's many impacts from vaccines that have long diagnostic horizons or long incubation periods, cancers, autoimmune disease, neurodevelopmental disease. Sometimes you won't see them for a year or two. They said, we don't want to do that. We want to be able to develop a vaccine and get it out very quickly. So they said, we won't call it a medicine, we'll call it a biologic, which was the traditional name for vaccines. And they said, and we'll make biologics immune from safety testing. And that's what they did. And I think most Americans do not know that vaccines are immune from liability. That's a scandal. And there's virtually no Americans that know or believe that their vaccines that they're giving their kids have never been tested. But let me tell you the worst scandal. Read the ingredient list for any vaccine. That's a scandal. Read the side effects that are on the manufacturer's insert for any vaccine. That also is a scandal. Oh, I could go on with the scandals all day.
Follow-up question?
Do you see any way out? Because you described initially a systemic issue linked to global digital media and corporations and on all levels. So it seems so powerful as a situation and so systematic as a problem that I don't see any solution for now. Do you think anybody has one?
I think what I see here is a solution. You know, I saw it yesterday. It would look to me, I didn't do a count, but I have aerial photos. And it looks like there's 1.5 million people in Berlin. Peaceful, they're not Nazis. They're peaceful, law-abiding, respectful, dignified people who are behaving in an exemplary fashion, coming from all over Europe and saying, you know, we're not going to stand for this anymore. But like I said, you know, we need to develop our own media. We need an alternative media to the corporate-owned media, to the media that has turned against democracy, that it is on the side of the totalitarian regimes. And you know, I'm seeing it here. I'm seeing you guys are all part of a new media, and that is an alternative, and that gives me a tremendous amount of hope. You know, my friend here mentioned Joseph Goebbels. And Goebbels, of course, was Hitler's propaganda minister. And when he came in, the first thing that the Nazis did was they took over control of all of the press. And he ran all the press. There was not one single press outlet that was not controlled by the Nazi Party. And if you own the control of information, you can control the belief system of a population. And Hitler knew that, and Goebbels knew that more than anybody. And there was nothing like this in 1933 or 1934. You know, you would have all been executed, right? But today I'm seeing these, you know, these little rays of daylight that are beginning to penetrate the darkness. And I think all of those people who came here yesterday were people who are walking toward the light. And each one of these cameras is creating another hole in the dark ceiling and letting the light in. And you know, we have a system now that has been taken over by, you know, by the cockroaches. And the way that you get rid of cockroaches is with daylight. You know, if you as soon as people understand what they're doing, there's outrage, there's indignation, there's revolution. And if the great majority of people out there who believe in all of the orthodoxy, the only reason they believe in it is because they don't have the information. If we can get them the information, that's why I haven't been allowed to talk about this in the United States for 15 years. The minute they let me on TV to talk about this, they're through. Because the fraud is so, they have built an edifice by stacking fraud upon fraud upon fraud upon fraud, and it's so tall and so unwieldy that all we need to do is kick out a couple of bricks and the whole thing will collapse. The way that we do that is with the daylight, is with information, and so all of you are part of this revolution. You're the most critical aspect of it because you can get the truth out to our community. And you know, nobody goes from our side to their side. Nobody goes from enlightened back to darkness. And all of the people who are living in the twilight and the darkness, as soon as they see the light, they're going to walk toward it. And they're never going back. And so we have the capacity to recruit them with the truth. It's very powerful. And the only way that they can recruit is with fear. And that really is what the battle is about. It's a battle between truth and fear. And, you know, you guys are the frontline soldiers. Oh, thank you.
Es ist ein Kampf zwischen der Wahrheit und den Lügen. Und es geht nur um Information. Ich bin auch gefragt worden, warum sind noch nicht alle Ärzte bei Ärzte für Aufklärung? Und da sage ich auch immer, das hat was mit dem Informationsstand zu tun und ich habe auch dafür sehr viel Verständnis. Und gerade wenn man viel arbeitet oder in anderen Berufen auch verhaftet ist, ja, wie viele andere auch oder in ihrem Leben sich halt um ihre Kinder kümmern oder ähnliches, dann hat man nicht immer die Zeit, sich zu informieren. Und es geht eigentlich um Vertrauen. Wir müssen ja auch arbeitsteilig sein und wir vertrauen in den Staat, in die Medien. Aber genau das ist halt ein Fehler. Und wenn wir einfach mal Fakten dazu nehmen, es ist so, und das sind jetzt Zahlen des ersten deutschen Fernsehens, der ARD, 99,5% aller Zeitungen, die Sie am Kiosk kaufen können, stammen von 5 privaten Medienkonzernen. 99,5%. Und wie die Leitungen, die Vorstände der Medienhäuser ARD, ZDF zusammengesetzt sind, dann sehen Sie auch, das ist politisch zusammengesetzt. Und wenn Sie sich jetzt mal schauen, politisch, ja, das haben wir doch gewählt, das ist doch demokratisch, naja, dann schauen Sie doch mal, wie es wirklich läuft. Ja? Wer da nicht halt richtig mitstimmt, der wird vom Fraktionsvorsitzenden unter Druck gesetzt. Eigentlich ganz einfach, entweder du stimmst nächstes Mal mit, was wir hier auf dem Tablett haben, oder du stehst nicht mehr auf der Liste. Ja? So einfach ist es. Hören Sie sich Marco Bülow an, der war bei der SPD Wahlkreis halt Dortmund. Ja, der hat es auch exakt gesagt. Genauso läuft das ganze Spiel. Was wir also haben, ist eine durchgängige Art von Korruption. Und auch jetzt müssen wir das sehen. Wir haben hier eine Art organisiertes Verbrechen im Weltmaßstab. Deswegen bin ich sehr froh, dass wir hier zusammen das international auch machen. Und abschließend Ihre Frage nochmal, ja, wir sollten jeden Tag so etwas hier produzieren. Und schön, dass Sie hier sind. Vielen Dank.
Ich informiere euch eben, wie es weitergeht. Es könnte sein, dass wir die ganze Veranstaltung hier abbrechen. Dann versuchen wir noch einen Fototermin hinzubekommen. Das muss so schnell wie möglich laufen und es könnte sein, dass wir euch Pressevertreter gleich brauchen in Action.